Hello everyone, this is Caillou, back again for another Moxtober daily wrap-up. Moxtober is a month-long event in which each day has a one-word prompt based on which people create custom cards and share them. I'm back today with the creator of Moxtober, Bradley Rose, after a brief two-day break for some other cool guests from the community. And today we're going to be talking about the designs for the Day 8 prompt, Rider. Now, today was kind of an exciting day, and do you want to tell everyone why that was, Bradley?
Holy jeez. Y'all have collectively designed over 70 cards.
In a single day
Maybe
for
more.
one prompt.
Yeah. Woo. It was poor Caillou's been enjoys collecting all of them into a magic set editor file, but it did take you a while.
Yeah. And I think today more than ever, if we don't get to talk about your card, I'm sorry, but we are only human and we have limited time. But I've collected all 73 of the cards that I've found into an MSC file, which you can find in the description. I encourage you to go check it out. There's so many great cards that I know we're not going to get to talk about today, and and I think that's a damn shame. So everyone should go check that out. But yeah, um, I guess to give more time to talk about our cards, we should probably just get straight into it, right? Do you want to start
Oh
off or
yeah.
should I?
Go you kick us off.
Okay, so the first card I want to talk about is Charge Towards Victory, which I think usually like I like to talk about the cards that have like a unique spin on the prompt first, but this one is just straightforward and incredibly cool mechanically. So you can it's an instant for 5. You may put a red creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Then it has a glorious end effect where you take an extra turn and at the beginning of that turn's end step you lose the game. So so many I feel like this appeals to like almost every type of player. Like the spike is going to be looking for like, okay, because this is instant speed, I can probably do something stupid here where I can like play this in like a control combo deck or something. The Johnny is like, what is the stupidest thing I can cheat out? That's maybe not the most viable, and or maybe not the most safe from protection or whatever, but like can like get the gears turning. And the Timmy is just like, oh, okay, we get to cheat out big cards. I'm here. I'm down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like sneak attack is a powerful effect that is definitely appealed to like the spikes and um but when you combine it with you usually not playable Final Fortune type of effect, now you get into that interesting space. And it's cool to have both of those classic red pie effects together in one spell.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a card from Castmire actually, which is another Beacon of Creation project. Go check out the server in the description. But there's the card. Oh man, I'm just blanking on the name. But it's put a legendary creature card from your hand onto the battlefield and end the turn. So very similar, like dramatic reveal kind of, or like
Mm-hmm.
here we go. We're gonna cheat something
Yeah,
out. Hmm.
there's pause. It's like dun dun dun. It was you the whole time, or the killer has revealed themselves.
Hmm. Okay, so what card do you want to talk about?
Okay, so let's do a nice simple one that is Black Rider. Okay, so this one is pay 4443 menace. You may have up to 9 copies of Black Rider in your starting deck. This is a Lord of the Rings reference. There's 9 of these, and I've never seen having up to 9 of these things. I guess in your deck, but the the fact that there's like some creatures are known just to be things that ride things and this is just like, oh yeah, you can just do this without having too much of a complicated way of demonstrating ridership. But also shout out to Menace and throwing that back to um Dominaria's what's that, the Josu Vest, yeah, creates a bunch of Menace Knights, and those are like riding things, and they can't be blocked except by 2.
Yeah, and like I thought I'd escaped Lord of the Rings with yesterday, but I think it keeps coming back. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is a card which like it reminds me a lot of Legion Angel and how like in how just face value simple it is, but then you're just like, oh, I want to do something with this. This can be cool. Of course, unlike Legion Angel, you don't get like the card advantage, or like the yeah, but you still get like some. You can do some cool synergies with it potentially. So big fan. So the next card I want to talk about is, I think, the first like I think rider we usually think of like dragons or like a horse or something, but there's always the like Celestia has shown us like riding on wolves is viable too. So Zayn the underdog, who is red and a green for a legendary creature dog. Um, it has Mount, which is pay 2 red and a green, put it under target unmounted creature you control until it leaves the battlefield, and that creature basically just gains all properties of this card. And whenever a creature mounts Zayn, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So, and I like the cute little thing of underdog, and then you're putting the card under something. So, mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't catch that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so this is like there's that visceral feel of mount when you have the stack, have them stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, how do I put this? It feels like a very direct way of having this idea of ridership. We'll see like some other like flavorful ways, but then I like that this is just like, yeah, okay, we're just gonna do this. We have the mutate tech now. Why might as well use it?
Yeah, and I know this is a part of a suite of cards, right?
Yep, this is the red green archetype for Canterbury Eggs Moxtober set. Um, I guess it just uses Mount uh, to get value out of your big beaters. So,
Yeah, that sounds like very fun. Like eventually, it's helpful to stack your creatures so you can still get through any blockers.
mhm.
All right, so another another thing that you can ride um, is vehicles. And here to start us off, this has been a popular thing, but we're gonna use Dr. Tyrus Mastermind as the example here. 4 blue red for a Goblin Artificer. When it enters the battlefield, make a 5/5 legendary vehicle token named Mark 2.5 with crew 1. And whenever Dr. Tyrus crews a vehicle, that vehicle gains tap. This deals X damage to a creature or player, where X is this creature's power. So this creates gameplay of like Dr. Tyrus really loves hopping in and out of a bunch of different vehicles. And when you build, say, a commander deck around it, you can encourages you to just try to go wide with a ton of vehicles and have this goblin hop around.
Yeah, I like the idea of just like this small person just hopping around to and then being like, just poke you or poke you and poke you. Um, it's and like the idea that I always like expensive creatures that are themselves small, but then somehow like have like have some way of making big stats. And I think we haven't seen vehicle tokens in general, as far as I know, but we haven't
Mhm.
seen vehicle tokens as a method for doing that. So I'm a big fan. Yeah.
It's clever. Like usually you don't want to have uh, creatures that you tend to want to attack with, like say a dragon. You don't want to put on a tap ability on that thing because you create this tension of like, oh, I really want to attack with this big creature I have, but I also have to tap it for this effect. In this case, it's okay because you can. It's you're dealing the damage with power anyway. So it's sort of like a clever way of making all of your vehicles like unblockable without actually attacking.
Yep. Um, okay, so the next card I want to talk about is it would not be, I feel like it would not be a Moxtober wrap-up video if we did not talk about one of Cajun's Moxes. So, Mox Rider. So it's a Moxen, and you add a colorless, but you can only spend it to cast vehicle spells. However, it makes up for that by making it so that when that creature enters the battlefield, its crew abilities cost 1 less, so they need 1 less power. So you're getting double value, even though it's super narrow.
Keep knocking it out of the park. Another cool Mox.
I also like the reference to Kaladesh with the get one for your dash, your gear shift, and all 4 wheels. The only way to race out on the oval chase, which like
Yeah.
which also I don't know why I said that in that accent when Kaladesh is definitely not that, but it definitely it feels like one of those come on down to so and so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the the show or whatever. I guess what was it, the car dealership commercials? That's funny.
Mm,
Uh, um, it's yeah, you can yeah, the Kaladesh flavor seems appropriate since as we've seen with the inventions, the Kaladesh denizens do have a tendency to recreate the magnificent artifacts we've seen in Magic's history for themselves, and rightly so because they're all very cutting edge in their technology and their learning of stuff. So you can imagine they would create their own Moxes, and it wouldn't. If there was ever reprints of Moxes set on a plane, I would guess Kaladesh might be a good choice, or
yeah,
the original five. Yeah.
and one thing I think the plane that most people probably associate with Kaladesh the most is Ixalan because of the Huatli Sahili friendship, and
Oh yeah.
so this is me transitioning super awkwardly into Atsukon Raptor Rider, which is a 4 drop with Unite 3, which is a cool mechanic. Whenever you cast a spell that shares a color or creature type, which makes it very easy to build, I think, cool archetypes in limited that don't have to be they can overlap in only one of those, etc. But yeah,
Mm.
basically it it's just a static power and toughness boost. And whenever it attacks, you create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with trample. It's tapped and attacking. So you want to cast spells to pump this up, so it's not just attacking in as a very chumpable 1/1, and so that you can keep swinging in and making more and more dinosaurs.
I think this is a knockout of the park here with Ixalan having had a drawback where there was too much focus on the axis of creature types. Uh, Dinosaurs spans three colors, so you could unite in the creature type way where you can maybe pull from all the Naya colors as you draft. But it's also cool that it goes off of color because then you can also just ignore any green plus whatever limited archetypes. You can go mono green, and it helps that it just says color and not just like creature with that color. Because then you can focus on, all right, I'm doing only green cards. I only have so many green creatures within that, but I can also maybe be rewarded for trying to draft all my excellent other green spells.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if if instead of a keyword, this could be made into an ability word, so you can do more than PT boosting. I think that would maybe be an interesting space, but that might make it too complicated because I think having to track color and creature type can already be a cognitive drain. But I'd be interested in seeing what that version of it looks like.
Yeah, that's reasonable to play test and consider. Okay, so let's go and do. I'm not sure of this. I'm reminded of Marvel Comics with this one, but I'm not sure if I'm reading too much into it. It's the Eternal Rider. This one is a Spectre pilot. 3/1. Whenever a vehicle enters the battlefield under your control, you may return the Eternal Rider from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. If you do, the vehicle gains haste and becomes an artifact creature till end of turn. So I think of Ghost Rider. Am I off?
I
I
don't.
don't
I
know.
mean, I don't remember the context that this person mentioned, but there's also another Ghost Rider design. Um, so
Oh man. Yeah, yeah.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah, so I guess that might give some credence to okay, people do think of Ghost Rider. But I think it's hilarious that usually specters are writing some kind of flying dark creature thing and this specter is riding a vehicle.
Yeah, I
So
would love to
so
see
it's
this
kind of
just pull up
clever.
on a battleship, yo.
Yeah, yeah.
And this also reminds me of there was a card yesterday which was Mythos of Yawgmoth, which revived an artifact if you didn't pay white and black for it, and it was like a Phyrexian revival spell.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I was thinking maybe you can combo this with that where you play Mythos of Yawgmoth, bring back a vehicle, then you get Eternal Rider to give it haste, and so you have some longevity there and some burst potential. So just just crack combos if we ever make a Moxtober cube.
Ooh.
Okay, so I think I mentioned earlier that I like the idea of different interpretations of Rider, and I think, and I've also mentioned before that I like to be a hipster, and unfortunately, lots of other people thought of this interpretation of Rider, so I did not get to be a
You've been
hipster.
spoiled with your hipsterness.
Yeah, but I'm kind of cool with it because it resulted in a lot of cool designs. And so this interpretation is the idea of a rider as like this legal addition or legal additional legal clause. And so I want to point to Hidden Edict, which is an instant with target instant or sorcery gets sacrifice a creature. So you basically are just like, oh, okay. Uh, did you not see Appendix C 15.1? And I love like the paragraph symbols and stuff and the like an extra attention to detail. But overall, like I think this is a very flavorful way of representing a legal rider. So
Oh yeah, yeah. It's so elegant doing this because it's essentially just you're able to cast this as long you've cast another instant or sorcery this turn. Um, and I like this restriction. Like it encourages you to kind of maybe include a bit more instants and sorceries, and it feels fun to do and respond to yourself.
oh, but notably, it isn't target player sacrifice a creature. It's just sacrifice a creature. So you'd want to play this on an opponent's card. Though maybe
Oh shoot! Yes, yes.
though maybe
That
changing
is
it to target player would be more intuitive because I definitely had the same thought when I looked at this for the first time.
okay. Yeah, yeah. This actually makes more sense for the especially if you consider the mono black cost, which is really good, efficient cost for it. But now to balance it out, it's a lot harder to depend on your opponent casting an instant or sorcery.
Yeah, so being able to trigger this yourself, I think this is a common, and it's like attached to an ability word. So I'd assume that this is like for a limited environment of some sort. I think letting it have like the splice onto arcane mode could be interesting,
Mm.
and maybe like stuff with rider is like you can cast it, and then if it had, and then you can like rider if you targeted a spell you can or if you targeted a thing you control, extra bonus, maybe something like that. I don't know. I'm just trying to throw ideas out
Mm.
there.
It is funny, like you mentioned, splice. I guess this is maybe essentially splice onto an opponent's spell. Oh, well, then you have to discard. Yeah, very cool gameplay. So I want to talk about on a horse. Uh, okay, so this one's a one and a white for an enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2, has first strike, and is a knight in addition to its other types. Very clean, simple design. It speaks to one of the most hilarious reasons why a creature has the knight type. It's because it's writing something else in the art. Uh, and also and rightly so. Sometimes you want to give flying to certain creature types that don't normally get flying, like Mirrodin's cat Leonins. They don't fly, but white needs flyers for limited, so they make some of them knights, and then they're flying. But I thought this was funny. It's just you enchant a creature, and then you just say, "Hey, this is Raging Goblin on a horse."
Yeah, I like it. Feels very silver bordered, including the flavor, but it's mechanically black border. Also, the person who made this did not realize that this was just one mana cheaper dub um, until they designed it, which is so. But it definitely is that. But I prefer the name On a Horse, even though dub was already a top tier name.
Oh shoot, yeah, that's right. I had forgotten dub as well when looking at this. I guess yeah. So I guess that maybe just a tweak to make this different from dub, and then you're good to go.
But also, like, I think moving it to uncommon is a decent change and cheapening it. But also, I think like if you change the flavor enough that like people don't look at it and immediately go, "Wait, isn't this that card?" You've succeeded somewhere. Okay, so we're talking about weird and wild stuff to ride. Um, how about crabs? Reshi Crab Rider. It's 3 and a blue for a 2/5. Um, but you can pay 1 and a red to give it +X+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of spells you've cast this turn. So very interesting variant on fire breathing and one that can scale really quickly because it doesn't have a once per turn limit. So, which makes sense why this is an uncommon. Um, I really like this as like both the spells pay off and I know that like some sets like you want to have like a pseudo storm because that's like a fun thing in like more high powered limited
Mm.
environments that are trying to like emulate cubes and stuff. This could be like a less all in payoff for that where like you can like just go cast a bunch of rituals or whatever, pump this up. Maybe you have like some like combat trick that gives trample and then just go to town with that.
Yeah, yeah. It seems reasonable. Getting too wild with the number of spells doesn't normally happen unless you make do it on purpose in a maybe constructed way. So yeah, this seems pretty fair. Okay, let's uh let's ride some lightning. It's Lightning Rider, or the one with red, red, red. So this is a 2-1 elemental pilot. When it crews a vehicle is base power and toughness 6-1 and gains trample and haste till end of turn. Sacrifice that vehicle at the beginning of the next end step. It turns your vehicles into ball lightnings. I love just what do you call it? Putting a brick on the gas and just letting it go, and it just goes vroom. It does a heck ton of damage.
And like this is a very like funny design, but like in like mechanically, like you just like mentioned. But I love that like because I was reading it and I was like chuckling, and then I read the flavor text and I'm like, man, that puts a crazy spin on it. Like the most frightening rides are the ones not driven by my hand. Also, I messed up typing. I think it's supposed to be rides. I messed up
Ah,
typing that flavor
yeah,
text, but I like that like. I could like suddenly it's like I could see this grounded in like a serious set, like maybe like an urban fantasy type thing, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like I like that. And yeah,
yeah.
and like you mentioned, mechanically, just turning your things into ball lightnings is a plus mechanically.
Should I pick one? Storm Rider. Is that the one?
Conveniently, that was the one I was gonna
Ah!
talk about because I was like,
Whoa.
because I accidentally pulled it up while I was pulling up Lightning Rider, and I'm like, yeah, I wanted to talk about this, and then I could not remember the name. So good
That's
job.
funny. Wow. Well, why don't you kick it off?
Um, I, so Storm Rider is two in a red, and it has the kind of it reminds me a lot of Grinning Ignis, which was like it adds 3 mana on ETB, and then you can also like bounce it. Here it's got a dash cost of red, 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 and you can basically just refunds itself. So I like this because you can just like it's the dash cost is basically free because usually dash is like costed in such a way that like you're incentivized to use it, but then it like hurts you in the long run because you're giving up board presence. Here it's like sure you're giving up board presence, but you're technically not losing tempo because you're still adding back the mana. So pretty cool. And like and what we were just and I was also thinking about this because we were just talking about like urban fantasy and that art is like peak urban fantasy, so I love it a lot.
Yeah. Uh, this is a nice nod towards doing the storming off behavior with all the prowess and all the mana that you can get. I like that it makes me think about when is it acceptable to get a free raging goblin attack per turn? If this were just like cost 1 red for whatever 1/1 thing, and you have dash for 1 red, that wouldn't be fair because and you gain a red when it enters the battlefield. That wouldn't be fair because you could just have your goblin guide plus a free raging goblin on turn one, and that's not cool. But when you get to turn three, now you start going. You can dash all you want and just add an extra 1/1, but it's likely by then there's blockers, and it makes it not as appealing to dash out. It's a moot point.
Yeah, I hadn't considered like the development knobs on this, but that makes a lot of sense. Okay, what do you want to
Okay,
talk about next?
so let's go with the very simple way of demonstrating writing another creature. Let's go with Seaguard. It's a 3/3 Merfolk Knight. When it attacks, you could choose a whale you control. If you do, those creatures get +1/+1, can't be blocked. Otherwise, you create a whale token. So I like that it encourages you to charge forward with a because like when you're writing something, you usually want to go somewhere, and this triggering off of you attacking uh, is good in that flavor space. And great to have more whale tokens. I think dolphins have now been pinned into the whale type by now with phase dolphin in Ikoria. So it's cool to see a bit more of the dolphin representation.
Yeah, and I guess like a few thoughts I have is like, first of all, we were mentioning writing different stuff, so I like that this is like another type of thing that's being written. Um, and one thing that I like is I feel like with lots of flavor first designs, especially ones like this is not a dig, but like especially ones that you see on like the custom Magic sub, they're very much like uh, kind of like cute designs in the sense that like they're very narrow to get to like their flavor
Mm,
thing. This isn't that because it self-enables by creating the whales, which is something that I really love. You still get that it captures the flavor perfectly, but you also have that really cool gameplay element to it. And the last thing is Phase Dolphin. The unblockable feels like it harkens back to that. So overall, huge fan of this. Okay, and speaking of riding so like strange things, how about a three-eared horse? Um, we're gonna talk about ooh, if I can find it here, atop a pale horse. So this is instant for white and a black, and target opponent sacrifices a creature or enchantment. If they can't, you basically just drain them for two, and then you exile it with three time counters. So basically, it's like, you know, death comes for us all sooner or later, and it comes regularly. So I just like that flavor.
yeah, yeah. There's that trope of death riding, like there's that scary figure that rides a horse. Usually that imagery is nicely paired with inevitability, like and with of death, as you said. Um, and I like that it's clean. That it erodes you over time, and you eventually will die.
Yeah, and this really feels like uh, a very functional card too. Like sacrificing a creature or enchantment feels like something that you would want in like a like it's just like mechanically attractive, that kind of removal. So it feels like a practical card in a way that I like. Also, we're hitting up on the half an hour mark, so I was thinking maybe we just take two more cards each and then we move into our own designs.
Sounds good to me. Um, let's talk about Yale, Last of the Hell Riders, or Yale. It's a Spirit Scout, 3/2. When Yale and two or more other creatures attack, he phases out. When Yale phases in, he gains Skulk, and whenever this creature attacks, he deals damage equal to his power to target player until end of turn. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's got Skulk and phasing. But what I enjoy a lot here is the association of phasing with spirits, and I like that with M21's returning of phasing to use a little bit of that technology, that maybe we can see some more spirits go and gain some of this phasing technology.
Yeah, and like it gives me like kind of a meandering tower shell vibe of like it disappears and comes back and attack. It kind of like consecutive strikes, which is what the whenever this creature attacks deals damage equal to its power feels like. So
Mm,
at first I read that I'm like that doesn't feel very green white, but when you think of it as like a delayed attack, it makes sense.
yeah.
Okay, so the next card I want to talk about is you know what, we've been talking about like physical things and vehicles. So mine kind of falls into like into the latter category. It's going to be Mizium Hoverboard, which is an artifact equipment. And when it enters the battlefield, you create a 2/1 red goblin creature token with this creature attacks each turn if able, and then attach Mizium Hoverboard to it. And the equipped creature has flying. So I really like the idea of like equipments that create their own creatures on ETB is something that like I love a lot. I think Ancestral Blade is the one that does it in canon, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like the idea of just like this reckless rider, and when they eventually die and fall off, the board is still around to be used by someone a little bit more cautious than the Is It.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. You can imagine this goblin itself, who appropriately doesn't have a name because they're now dead, probably invented this and then did such a good job, but flew off their board. Yeah, so this is very nice. Like kind of straddling the line between Welkin Turn, which is the usual 2/1 flyer for two that can't block other creatures except unless they have flying. That's like this has a different drawback where you have to keep attacking, and then like red usually has the impetuous Sun Chaser as oh this is how we do flying. Either we have to keep attacking or we can only have flying on our turn. So this kind of straddles the line between the two. Okay. All right. So let's do oh boy. All right, I'm gonna pick Time Stream Rider. All right, so this one is a human wizard 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, reverse the game's turn order. Then if you have fewer than 7 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference. So we've seen cute reverse technology before. And I thought this one was neat because it goes into the whole you're actually like rewinding your hand up to 7, as if you start with that number of spells. And I think gameplay wise, this is a very nice card to have in hand when you get all the way down to just this one card left in your hand. You're like, oh, great, this is good. Now, I'm going to go and play Time Stream Rider, draw essentially 7 cards, I guess, at the end of the turn or at the beginning of the turn, I guess. Or yeah, it's the end of the turn, but you end it with the beginning phase.
Hmm. So yeah, it's super weird, but I love it, and it feels like a similar flavor could have been achieved by like restart the game, but that's like not as like there's less like stuff you can do there. Here, this just feels like oh, this is new and weird in a way that I like. Also, I'm not yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like reverse the phase order or if it was like reverse the turn order as in like in a multiplayer
Oh
game,
shoot! Oh, the
which order
turn
the
order.
so I didn't know which
Yeah,
one it was, but either
yeah,
way, I
yeah,
think it's
yeah.
super cool.
Yeah, it does say turn order. I did confuse it to be the topsy turvy Beebles one, where you do the phases in the other order. But I guess this still achieves the same thing where you usually begin a turn with a fistful of cards, but since this is reversing the turns order, it's almost like you're going whoop, 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 and going back to having
Yep. Also, I love that sound effect.
some.
Okay, so the last non-me card I'm going to be talking about today is Outlands Dragon Rider. So, red and a green for a flying haster 1/2. So, big sprite dragon vibes. And it has Expedition. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't share a name with another land you control, put a +1/+1 counter on Outlands Dragon Rider. So we saw, I think Brushfire Elemental was the one in ZNR, which had uh, I think it was like 1/1. It gets +2/+2 when a land enters the battlefield, and it can't be blocked with creatures with power 2 or less. This, I think, what I like about Expedition is that it's very flavorful. First of all, obviously, um, it has some interesting things that it encourages, and it's limited, and also, it makes it so that you can do landfall, but with some like more oomphy triggers, like the or like on some creatures where like it matters a lot more, like this one. So overall, it feels like very grokkable, but still very flavorful, which is why I like it.
Yeah, yeah. I love that encouragement. Like it would especially flourish in very heavy gold sets that want to have a ton of different lands for fixing. Um, I wish this would still solve the problem that landfall has with, which is also part of the fun too, where fetch lands can trigger landfall. Twice. Usually, a fetch land doesn't stick around on the battlefield, so that your next fetch land will still trigger this. But it does sometimes feel like okay, kind of hard to put a where it's like, hey, slow down there. I know you're playing like tons of fetch lands, and so I have to balance my card designs because of all of your fetching.
Yep, yep.
Okay, so is this where we talk about our stuff?
Oh, I thought you could have like one last card before we move to that.
Oh, that's wow. All right.
No
Feels like
pressure or anything.
feels like a bonus to me. Here we go. Let's do let's talk about curiosity effect in white, or at least a little inching towards that. Gust Cloak Rider. And this one is a throwback to the old Gust Cloaks. I think an Onslaught Black, Onslaught Block. Okay. First strike, whenever it becomes blocked, it's untap it, remove it from combat. If it would deal combat damage to a player, you may pay one, untap it, remove it from combat. If you do, draw a card. Um, Now, I know White's going through a little change lately with having different ways to try to get White card draws. Some folks don't think that White needs some card draw. Other folks do, but if White were to get card draw, one of the things I like is having it be upon dealing combat damage to a player because I think the white rewarding their martial prowess. They're able to get past these creatures very well. Andric style is a good white a thing that white is good at. I like that tying it, rewarding getting recon or whatever, hitting the player. So pairing it with the gust cloak, when you like bounce yourself back and stuff, that feels that was a nice marriage of the two. Um, and the fact that you can ride away very quickly is very like that. That's what feels like you're riding a horse in this case.
Yeah, I think like this feels so much like a scout. Like I think like the scout creature type exists, but I think this is the most scouty thing. And you mentioned
Uh,
like white card draw. Like yeah, I think that like the problem is I think like this is what happened with green as well, right? Where like a few years ago everyone was up in arms about green sucking a lot, and then um, I think the kind of proposed fixes lots of designers had to that weren't like conscious enough of like what green's strengths are supposed to be. And I think that like this is a good example of something that does that in a way that like I'm amenable to or like I feel good about. Because it's like, yeah, white is gonna trade that that like long term the damage for like a long term advantage or like show mercy on an opponent and to get card advantage. That feels white to me, and I think that yeah, like the fact like I think curiosity effects are specifically blue because like, you also get to deal the damage. I think trading it out for like I think you would probably put this on like cheaper creatures or cheaper effects than the blue one to compensate. So stuff like that. Also, I just realized that I forgot to put the power and toughness of this. I am so sorry. Give me a second to quickly look that up because I didn't. That is definitely not intended to not
mm,
have a power and toughness. That was just
yeah,
a
if I were
snafu
to
on
guess,
it.
I think this one's probably an 8/8, maybe. But
Hmm.
just kidding.
The,
But you're totally right that scout. This does feel so scout. Like when I think about what scouts do when they get into enemy territory, you're right. Like they don't go over there, punch someone, and then also get the intel and bring it back. And like, hey, did you get the knowledge? Like, yeah, but I also like hit them with my sword. And you're like, what? You're only supposed to get an info. And you're like, oh, right, okay. This person, yeah, totally is like, okay, I got there, got past their blockers, and then I came back.
yeah, and the power and toughness is supposed to be 3/4. So that was my bad. Yeah.
Cool. 3, 4. All right.
Okay, and I think now I'm going to get to talking about our actual designs. So, mine was, like I mentioned earlier, the interpretation of a rider is like a legal rider, and I thought I was being clever with that. There's actually several others, including ones we didn't get to discuss, like Law Mage's rider. So, definitely, again, this is another thing of like go check out the
Mm.
full file. But mine was a Rude Rider, which I specifically named it that just to be an annoying tongue twister. It's an Angel Advisor of 2/2 flyer. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player had another land enter the battlefield under their control this turn, you create a treasure token. So like the idea that like you're profiting off of the overexpansion of other players, and like I like I think like white like I think hate bear design is like one thing that like white should have more of like and hate bears that are also just playable creatures on the face of it. So this is just something that like both fit the prompt and is also something that like I kind of want something like this in Magic actually.
Yeah, it's like I almost want to like a kind of a different word for this. Like it's feeding off of your advantages bear or whatever it is. Getting a cut of your progress. Like I'm not stopping you, but like I'm also catching up to you because of all you're doing.
Hmm.
So yeah, and I this like white also has a thing with ramp. and I think it's treasure tokens with this way if it gets into that cool, like, I don't know, like taxing territory that I feel like is a great space for white to have more cards
Yeah, it's just like White's thing is all about like not not punishing you for doing your thing, but punishing you for having the audacity to do something different than it. So,
in. Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
actually, you know what? I can do that. I can totally do that. And so it like gets back at you.
Yep.
Okay, so what was your design?
Yeah, I also did writer in the legal type of sense. Mine is strategic operation. It's got I use the adventure style frame to help me out here, but it is like a spell within a spell. So the main spell lets you choose which creatures block this turn and how those creatures block. This is an effect you usually find on Odric when it attacks with three or more creatures, but Master Warcraft is another similar type of effect where you get to decide how creatures attack and block. So the spell within the spell is the tactical move. It has two generic and then instant dash amendment. And it has this reminder text here about what this means. Starting with you, each player may cast the spell in response, and the effect is tap or untap target creature. So if you cast the strategic operation, it's sort of like the document, I guess. And then the which feels like a Boros thing. And then the Azorius adds a little like, oh, let me add a little addendum here, a little amendment. Everyone else can sign if you would like, if you can. And then you just can then influence like some creatures are maybe tapped. And from your perspective, you may want to untap a creature so that you can have force it to block for the main spell. Then other creatures have a chance to like, oh, hold on, let me just tap around tap to further influence this combat that's about to happen.
Yeah, to either like if the player whose creature you're planning to effectively destroy is like, wait, I want to actually tap it, and then the other player's like, no, actually, I want it to die, so they can untap it. So you get like that will of the council style thing. So I really like this.
Yeah, yeah. I was hoping that yeah, because to pay two and a white without the like amendment part could be like, hey, you essentially have unblockable for everyone, which could be fine, but I wanted to make it a little more interactive.
And yeah, with that, that takes us to the end of today's Moxtober wrap up. As always, make sure to check out the MSC set file for today's cards in the description. Also, join the Beacon of Creation podcast if you haven't already, or Beacon of Creation server for the Beacon of Creation podcast, which is linked in the description. Um, Tomorrow, our video is going to be about the day 9 prompt, Tyrant, and on the day that this has come out, October 10th, the prompt is Brew. So if you make a card for that prompt, make sure to post it somewhere with the hashtag MTGMoxtober on Twitter or MTGMoxtober or Moxtober on Discord or Reddit. And until tomorrow, this is Caillou and Bradley signing off.
See ya.